Assalamu alaikum. I'm Hina Naseer, SS English, Divisional Public School and Inter College, Sahiwal. Our today's topic is Reading and Explanation, page number 24 of the chapter The Silver Lining. Our today's objectives are: by the end of lesson, students will be able to grab the main idea of the lesson, to read and explain the given text. The silver lining. What does silver lining mean? The silver lining means a ray of hope. As you can see in this picture, that there is darkness all around, but there is still a ray of light in it. That ray of light is a ray of hope. So the silver lining means a ray of hope. This short story has been written by an Indian writer, Chaman Nahal. Chaman Nahal was born in Sialkot in pre-independence India. Nahal was a professor and scholar, creative writer of novels and short stories, writer of children's book. Now let's come to the main story. In this story there are 5 characters: Mr. and Mrs. Ahad, Maheen, Mr. Nadeem, Mr. David. Mr. and Mrs. Ahad are husband and wife. They are the owner of the guest house and they have a little girl as their daughter, that is Maheen. She is dumb and deaf. Mr. Nadeem is the guest at their guest house and he is normal, and Mr. David is also a guest at their guest house and he is dumb and deaf. One day Mr. Nadeem came to their guest house, and while they were having conversation, Mr. Nadeem saw Maheen, but Maheen started crying and she ran away from the spot when Mr. Nadeem asked her to come to him. Due to this incident, her parents got disturbed and they started apologizing. As their daughter cannot communicate, she is dumb and deaf. After hearing this, Mr. Nadeem got disturbed also, and he proposed a plan that they should write a message on some piece of paper and they should put it in an envelope and they should hand that envelope to every guest which arrives to their guest house. In this way, feelings of Maheen will not be disturbed. Mr. and Mrs. Ahad agreed to this plan. One day, a young man named Mr. David came to their guest house. He was also dumb and deaf. Mr. and Mrs. Ahad tried to communicate with Mr. David, but he didn't respond properly. On watching Maheen and after opening the envelope, Mr. David got excited and he just ran to Maheen and started playing with her. Mrs. Ahad was annoyed with this incident, but after some time she realized that Maheen was really happy. Maheen was very comfortable in the company of this young man and they were playing and enjoying. After some time, Maheen ran to her mother in a very excited manner and she started playing and she started saying mama mom. Now let's move to the further stories in the last page of the chapter, that is page number 24. I hope that you have understood the story. Now let's move to the original text of page number 24. First of all, we will do the reading. Our daughter has not laughed like this for years, Mrs. Ahad said. Curious, we watched the two of them, who were now walking towards us hand in hand. Maheen ran to her mother and danced about her with joy. She made her curious sounds of ma 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 and wildly pointed to the young man. It was Mr. David who came to our rescue. We soon realized that he was deaf and dumb. Now I will explain the meanings of tough words. Curious. Curious means when we have tendency to investigate something, when we want to know about something. Joy means happiness. Realized, become aware of. Deaf. Deaf is a person who can't listen, and dumb is a person who can't speak. Here Mrs. Ahad said that she has not seen her daughter laughing like this for many years and she was curious. You may say that all people present there were curious. They were watching two of them like Mr. David and Maheen. They were walking towards them and they have their hands in hand. It means that they are very cordial with each other. They are very friendly with each other. And Maheen is a girl who just runs away, and here she is playing with that young man. And Maheen was so joyful that she ran to her mother and she started dancing, and she made queer sounds like wild sounds, you may say, the sounds which are made by dumb people because they can't utter a full word, so they make babbling sounds like mama, baba. So she was very excited and she made some bit wild and loud noises like mama and just like this, and she excitedly pointed to the young man, wildly means excitedly pointed towards the young man that he was the cause of her happiness. And it was Mr. David who came to our rescue. It was Mr. David who came for their help. Rescue means here help. And they soon realized that Mr. David, he here means Mr. David, that Mr. David was also deaf and dumb. Now let's move to the next paragraph. His strange, ambiguous silences, his sudden rush for the girl, or reading the note, all become instantly clear to us. It took us time to digest the news, and then both parents broke into incoherent statements of profuse apologies that they had not noticed it earlier. Imagining the type of man they were talking to, they spoke in half sentences and tried to convey the rest through gestures, but the young man had not the slightest difficulty in understanding them. He appeared to read their lips. He gracefully acknowledged their warmth and either nodded or shook his head in reply. For more complicated and lengthy answers, he used pen and paper. Now we will explain the meanings of tough words. Strange means unknown, ambiguous, confused, which is not easy to understand, sudden, rapid, instantly, momentarily, in a single moment. Digest, understand. Here digest means understanding something. Incoherent, unbalanced, profuse, a great amount, in large amount. Convey, to transmit something, to transfer something. And gracefully, in a decent manner, decently. Acknowledge, when we accept something on a general level, generally accepted. Nodded means when you signify with head. When a teacher asks, are you in school? So you will say, you will not utter a word and you just move your head yes, in a yes manner. So that means nodded, or it means signify with head. And shook, moving head, or complicated, complex, lengthy answers, long answers. Nodded and shook means both are the gestures. When we don't speak a word and we just use our head in saying yes or no, so that means nodded and shook respectively. His strange ambiguous silence, his sudden rush for the girl on reading the note, all become instantly clear to us. Here it is referring to Mr. David, that when he suddenly rushed to the girl and why he was silent, and his behavior has become now clear to the parents of the little girl, that the man was not ill-mannered, but it was due to his disability that he was showing bit strange behavior. And it took us time to digest the news, and time was required to understand his behavior. And both parents broke into incoherent statements of profuse apologies, and both parents were starting apologizing him and asking him for sorry that they had not noticed him. And imagining the type of man they were talking to, they spoke in half sentences. And when they realized that the man that is Mr. David is also deaf and dumb, they started speaking to him in half sentences. Half sentences mean in broken sentences, like we used to talk to dumb and deaf people. And they tried to convert the rest of their thoughts through gestures. The gestures means through expressions. Now Mr. David and Mrs. David are using expressions and half sentences to talk to Mr. David as they used to talk to their daughter. But the young man had not slightest difficulty in understanding them, but Mr. David had not any kind of difficulty in understanding them, because he appeared to read their lips. It felt that that man is a bit proficient in reading lips. He gracefully acknowledged. He decently accepted their warm and good behavior, and he answered them by nodding his head in yes and shaking his head in no. For more complicated and lengthy answers, he used pen and paper. And if he has to say something in larger amount, then he just writes it on the paper. Now let's move to the next paragraph. The next day, Mrs. Ahad was full of news. She talked as she had never talked before. She mentioned the stranger and the plans for the betterment of Maheen he had outlined to her and her husband. There were schools for such people, he had told them, though they were beyond most people's means. He had himself been educated in such institution abroad and had now returned to Pakistan to render the same useful service to others. Having a school here, she almost broke down with gratitude when she said he had agreed to accept Maheen as his first pupil. He had emphatically stated that the girl could in course of time live almost as normal a life as one of us who had the powers of hearing and of speech. Mrs. Ahad laughed like a carefree girl. She gave us an extra helping of jam and butter and honey at the table. She looked the happiest woman in the world. Here the whole story is narrated by Mr. Nadeem. So the next day Mrs. Ahad was full of news. Next day Mrs. Ahad was full of excitement and she had a lot to talk. She had talked as she had never talked before. She was talking like no one has seen her talking like this before. She was so excited and happy. She mentioned the stranger. She referred to the strange boy, Mr. David, and his plans for the betterment of their little girl. The plans which were suggested by Mr. David to Mrs. Sister and Mrs. Ahad. Here mention means referred, betterment mean improvement, and outline means project plan. There were schools for such people here, Mr. David had told them that there are schools for such people who are them and that, and he has also been educated in one institute, and Maheen can also go to one school, and he is also planning to open one such school. And Mrs. Ahad was so thankful to that old man, and not an old man. Mr. David was not an old man; he was a young boy. Mrs. Ahad was very excited that her daughter would also be able to talk like Mr. David, and he clearly said that the girl that is Maheen would be her first student. So Mrs. Ahmed was very excited and happy, and she was looking like a carefree girl because now she has no stress of her daughter, because both parents were very stressful about their daughter, and as an expression of happiness, she served Mr. David and Mr. Nadeem with extra jam and butter and honey. They are happy. She looked the happiest woman in the world. She was looking like the most happiest woman in the world. I hope that you have grabbed the story and you will be able to understand the text of page number 24. It's all just revolving around the story, and it is just a conclusion. Now there is a time for follow-up. Here is a quiz for students. You have to go through. You have to read it, and you have to solve it accordingly. I'm giving you a few seconds, so please, students, read it and try to find out its answers and note it on and write the answers in some rough notebook. Okay, I hope that you have answered all the questions of the quiz. It is just for your assessment and recapitulation of the lesson. As a homework, you have to make sentences of these given words, and these sentences should not be from the given text. You have to make these sentences of your own. And here I have also provided the answer key of the questions of the quiz, so you may not face any kind of difficulty. You may check your understanding level. If your 5 answers are correct, it means that you have understood the lecture. If your all answers are wrong, it means that you have to listen to the video again. Here is your activity, your assignment for copy. You have to pick out a checklist from the given text, and you have to find the antonyms by using thesaurus, and you also have to make sentences on copy. These two are your work for your copy. You have to make sentences and you have to do this activity on your copy, and you can also note this quiz in your copy as an assignment. It's up to you. Okay, students, I hope that you have enjoyed today's lesson. Take care. Allah Hafiz.
Have a nice day. Thank you.